Hello, my name is Dr. Jonathan Oates, Archivist for the London Borough of Ealing, and this is the second in the Inspector Morse in Ealing videos. We're standing in front of 11 Castlehill Hill, which was built in 1894 by John Kershaw, architect, but Inspector Morse fans will know it from the 1990 broadcast episode Driven to Distraction, which also co-stars Patrick Malahide. In Driven to Distraction, this house is used as the scene of the first murder. It is also used as the scene of the incident room, which the characters frequently enter and leave. It is also possibly used later in the film as the scene where the third victim is seen looking out of the tower windows before she goes down, lets her murderer in and is killed. Now, as said, the house dates back to 1894. It was built for Abram Kellett. Abram Kellett was a public works contractor. He made an immense fortune by building roads and railways. He lived in this house with his family, his wife, his 3 children, his niece and 2 servants. A descendant of his recalls that the family had a horse and carriage and would ride on that horse and carriage to the shops in the West End for shopping. They would also hold great parties in the house as well. Now, the house itself, as you can see, is very large. It has a very distinctive turret. It has 40 rooms. Unfortunately, the house, which was known as Wyke House after Wyke in West Yorkshire, Bradford, which is where Abram Kellett came from, had to be sold in 1914. This is because Abram Kellett went bankrupt, and a few years later he died, leaving only £35 to his wife. After he died, the house was lived in by a man called William Jepson from 1918 to 1927, and it was later owned by a man called Ernest Drayton in the 1930s. He was a dental surgeon. In 1939, it was owned by the Railway Men's Benevolent Society, and a former member of the group who worked here, he remembered that during World War II, members of staff would have their lunches in the turret room, because in the turret room you can see across the valley as far afield places such as Wembley and Harrow. In 1952, the Railway Men's Group left and the house was divided into 3 flats. And it lost its name Wyke House and is now known as 11 Castlehill Hill. In 1978, it was valued at £100,000, which in those days was the equivalent price to buying 10 council houses. In a newspaper article in 1978, it was said that this is the only house from which you can sunbathe naked and not be arrested. Thank you for listening and watching this video. Please remember to subscribe to Ealing Library's YouTube channel, write a comment and hit the like button. Thank you.
So I'm standing outside Wyke House here in Ealing, and this is one of the locations for the episode Driven to Distraction. And behind me here is the entrance, the way that Jackie would have gone in, the character in this episode, and she had an entry phone system here. And sadly her attacker and murderer went through this doorway and up to the first floor room where he sadly killed her. Later in the episode, on the turret, which Jonathan was talking about, is where Angie had her marijuana stash of pot plants, and indeed the murderer parked his car in this very car park.